My nephew asked one question and exposed the lie my family hid for 2 years.
The moment my 7-year-old nephew pointed at me and asked, "Is Aunt Claire the one whose name Grandma put on the house?" Every adult at the table stopped moving. My father froze with a hamburger halfway to his mouth. My sister, Megan, grabbed her son's wrist. My mother stared at him as if he had just set the table on fire. Then Megan laughed too loudly and said, "Kids hear one word and invent a whole story." But I knew my nephew had not invented anything. I had driven 3 hours to attend my father's 65th birthday barbecue outside Columbus, Ohio. The yard looked exactly as it had when I was a child. The same wooden fence leaned toward the alley. The same maple tree shaded the long folding table. My mother had even used my grandmother Ruth's glass lemonade pitcher. Grandma Ruth had owned that house for 42 years. After my grandfather died, my parents moved in with her. When her health began to fail, I drove from Indianapolis almost every weekend. I bought her groceries, organized her medication, and sat with her through the long nights when she was afraid to sleep. Megan lived 15 minutes away, but she was always too busy. My parents said I was the reliable daughter, yet they treated that reliability like free labor. When Grandma died 2 years earlier, my mother told me there was no inheritance. She said medical bills had consumed everything, and the house had passed to my father. I was grieving, and I trusted her. I never asked to see a document. At the barbecue, Megan quickly changed the subject. She announced that she and her husband, Derek, were moving into the house. My parents were going to Florida, and Megan planned to add a second floor and replace Grandma's garden with a swimming pool. Everyone raised a red plastic cup. I did not. Near Derek's plate was a folder from a title company. The top page showed the property address. Under it was a photocopy of a signature I recognized immediately. Mine. I picked up the page and read one sentence. It said that I had transferred all my interest in the house to my parents for $10. The date beside my signature was 6 days after Grandma's funeral. I had never seen that document. I had never signed it. And on the date printed there, I had been in Chicago for work. My mother took the paper from my hand and smiled. "You signed a lot of things back then," she said. "You were upset. You probably forgot." I looked around the table. No one met my eyes, not even my father. That was when I understood. This was not one person's lie. My whole family had been living inside it. Part 2, the old version of me would have shouted. She would have demanded answers and given everyone time to create better lies. Instead, I smiled. I told Megan I was happy for her. I helped clear the plates. While everyone gathered for a family photo, I photographed every page in the folder with my phone. Then I hugged my father, thanked my mother for dinner, and drove back to Indianapolis. I cried for the first 20 miles. After that, I became calm. On Monday morning, I called the county recorder's office. By noon, I had copies of every document connected to Grandma's property. The first document was a transfer. On death deed recorded 3 years before Grandma died. It named me as the sole beneficiary of the house. I read my name 5 times. The second document was the quitclaim deed I had seen at the barbecue. According to that paper, I had transferred the house to my parents immediately after Grandma's death. The third document was a home equity loan for $212,000. The fourth was a pending sale agreement. My parents were not simply giving the house to Megan. They were selling it to a development company for $685,000. Megan and Derek would receive money for a new home somewhere else. The closing was scheduled for Friday. They had invited me to the barbecue because they needed one final family photograph. The developer's representative had asked whether any relatives might challenge the sale. My family wanted a happy picture, showing that I knew about the move and approved. My own smile was supposed to become evidence against me. I contacted a real estate attorney named Denise Harper. She listened without interrupting, then asked me to send the documents and proof that I had been in Chicago on the date of the fake signature. I sent her my hotel receipt, airline record, work calendar, and a photograph from the conference. The picture showed me standing on a stage beneath a large digital clock. It had been taken 30 minutes before someone supposedly watched me sign a deed in Ohio. Denise also noticed something I had missed. The notary stamp belonged to Mark Bell, one of my father's oldest friends. His commission had expired 4 months before the deed was signed. By Tuesday afternoon, Denise had recorded a formal notice disputing the deed. She notified the title company, the lender, and the developer. The closing was suspended. At 4:12 that afternoon, my mother called. Her voice was soft and sweet. "Claire, honey, did you contact some lawyer about the house?" I asked her one question. "Why is my signature on a document I never signed?" The sweetness disappeared. "After everything this family has done for you, do you really want to destroy your sister's future?" That answer told me more than a confession. Part 3. For the next 3 days, my family tried every version of pressure. My father said it was a misunderstanding. Megan said Grandma had wanted the house to support the relatives who had children. Derek told me that a single woman with a good salary did not need a $600,000 property. My mother was the cruelest. She said, I had always been jealous of Megan. She said taking the house would prove that I cared more about money than family. Then she offered me $15,000 to sign a new deed and make the problem disappear. I saved every message and forwarded it to Denise. 2 days later, an overnight envelope arrived from a law office in Columbus. Inside was a copy of a letter Grandma had written to me shortly before she died. The law office had originally mailed it to the family house because Grandma believed I would receive it there. Someone had signed for it. That signature belonged to my mother. Grandma's letter was only 1 page long. She wrote that she was leaving me the house because I had cared for her without asking what I would receive. She knew my parents might call the decision unfair. She told me that fairness was not giving the loudest person whatever they demanded. Fairness was remembering who stayed when staying was difficult. At the bottom, she wrote, "Do not let guilt turn my final decision into someone else's reward." I sat at my kitchen table and cried harder than I had after the barbecue. Then Denise called with another discovery. The $212,000 loan had not paid for my parents' retirement. Most of it had gone into Derek's failing restaurant. The rest had covered Megan's credit cards and a new SUV. My sister had not been an innocent beneficiary. She had helped spend money borrowed against a house she knew Grandma had left to me. That evening, my father appeared at my apartment without warning. He looked 10 years older than he had at the barbecue. He placed a blue folder on my table. Inside were printed emails between my mother, Megan Derek, and Mark Bell, the former notary. One message from my mother contained a scanned Christmas card with my signature at the bottom. Her instructions were simple. Use this. Claire never checks county records. My father admitted that he had known about the fake deed. He claimed my mother had convinced him that I would eventually agree. Then he learned about the sale and discovered that she planned to give almost all the remaining money to Megan. He had not come because he suddenly found a conscience. He had come because the people who betrayed me had started betraying him. I took the folder anyway. Evidence does not become less true just because a coward delivers it. Part 4. Denise gave copies of the emails to the lender, the title company, and the county prosecutor. The developer withdrew from the sale. The lender froze the home equity account. Mark Bell hired a lawyer before anyone had even called him. My mother still believed she could control the family story. She invited everyone to one final meeting at the house. She told relatives that I was trying to make my parents homeless. She placed Grandma's lemonade pitcher on the table and arranged the chairs exactly as they had been during the barbecue. I arrived with Denise. That was the first moment my mother looked afraid. Denise explained the situation in plain language. Grandma's recorded deed had transferred the house to me when she died. The later deed was forged. The loan and planned sale depended on that forgery. My parents could either cooperate with a court order or force us to prove the fraud publicly. Megan began crying. She said her children would suffer. I reminded her that she had spent 2 years using my future as if it were her private bank account. My mother pushed Grandma's letter across the table and called it the confused writing of an old woman. That sentence ended any doubt I still carried. Grandma had fed us, sheltered us, and forgiven us more times than I could count. My mother had taken her care, hidden her last wish, and then insulted her memory when the truth became inconvenient. I looked at my father. I asked whether he was prepared to testify that the emails were real. He said yes. My mother turned on him so quickly that everyone finally saw what I had seen for years. Her love lasted only while people obeyed her. The case did not become a long courtroom drama. The evidence was too clear. The handwriting expert confirmed that my signature had been copied. Travel records proved I was in another state. The law office produced proof that my mother had intercepted Grandma's letter. Bank records traced the loan money directly to Megan and Derek. The judge canceled the forged deed and confirmed that I owned the house. My parents were ordered to leave. The lender pursued the people who had taken the money, not the property they had used without my consent. Mark lost his professional license and accepted a criminal plea. Megan and Derek entered a repayment agreement. My mother accepted a plea that included restitution, probation, and a permanent fraud conviction. My father avoided the worst charge because he cooperated, but cooperation did not erase what he had done. He moved into a small apartment and started sending me letters. I read each one. I answered none of them. Part 5. The house was legally mine, but for several months I could barely enter it. Every room held 2 memories. In one, Grandma and I drank tea at the kitchen counter. In the other, my mother copied my signature nearby. In one, my father taught me to ride a bicycle in the driveway. In the other, he stayed silent while the family stole from me. For a while, I considered selling the property and never returning. Then I walked into Grandma's garden. Megan had marked the flower beds with orange paint where she planned to build her swimming pool. Beneath the maple tree, I found Grandma's old metal watering can. It was rusted, but it still worked. I decided the people who lied to me did not deserve the power to poison every honest memory. I used part of the recovered money to repair the house. I paid the lender only the small amount my attorney believed would end the dispute cleanly, without admitting responsibility for the fraudulent loan. Then I turned the detached garage into a quiet office and moved my consulting business there. The following summer, I hosted a barbecue. I invited Denise, several close friends, my neighbors, and 2 nurses who had cared for Grandma. We used the same long folding table. We filled Grandma's glass pitcher with lemonade. No one asked me to smile for evidence. No one measured my value by whether I had a husband or children. Near sunset, my nephew arrived with his father. Megan was not allowed to contact me directly. but I had made sure her children knew they were not responsible for their parents' choices. My nephew stood beside the garden and apologized for asking about the house at the old barbecue. I knelt and told him the truth. You never have to apologize for asking an honest question. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph of Grandma holding me as a baby. On the back, in her handwriting, were 6 words. Claire always finds her way home. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone beneath the maple tree. For the first time in years, the house felt quiet instead of haunted. My family had believed revenge meant taking something from them. They were wrong. My revenge was the truth. It took back my name, my home, and the part of me they had trained to feel guilty for saying no. They had forged my signature because they thought silence made me weak. In the end, my silence was only the moment before I signed my own life back into my hands.